Hi everyone, and welcome to Women Leading People. My name's Eva Evangelou, and I created this talking series to inspire and empower women as people managers. Today is our sixth interview, and I'm so excited to have Sandhya Godhania with us today, talking about taking risks and taking that gamble and why it pays off in the long run. So Sandhya is a business manager for a private daycare setting, and we've had a great conversation before, and I'm so keen to have her on the show and share her story from her management experience and what she would recommend for you going into the world of management. So Sandhya, thank you so much for joining.
Oh, you're welcome.
Wonderful. So it's great to have you here today. And do you want to just start off by telling us a little bit about what you do now and how you got into your first role?
Okay, so my title is business manager. So it's quite a big role. I do anything from, I look after the whole business, and I'm training up other managers to do different roles within the business. I started off as a nursery assistant, and slowly built my way up. So yeah, it involves quite a lot, appraisals, personal development, looking at the business side, the capacity and where we're headed to at different stages throughout the year.
Excellent. So you started off as a nursery assistant. Tell me a little bit about the journey going from, being an assistant to then getting your first management role.
Okay, so I was a nursery assistant, and I did it to get into childcare industry, and did the qualification, and the director asked me to take a management position, but I didn't feel it was the right time for me, so I kept saying no. And he kept approaching me, and I was thinking, I don't think this is something I can do. I don't know if I'm going to enjoy it. Will I be able to do it? These were all the questions that were going through my head. And at the time I had young children, who were doing exams and things like that. So I kept saying no, and he was quite persistent. So I thought, do you know what? I really don't want this role, but I'll tell him what I would like to do instead. So I kind of drafted out a plan of my skill set and what I would enjoy in a management role, not taking the whole nursery manager role, but parts of the bits that I enjoyed. And I thought, what's the worst that's going to happen? He's going to say no. And he surprisingly said yes. And it was great because it was all the parts that I enjoyed. I love supporting staff. And I think that is my skill set. I get on well with most people. You're going to get one or two who maybe clashes with your personality, but on the majority, I get on with most people. I can kind of work out what makes them tick. And I loved it because I did the appraisals the first time, personal development, was looking for training for them. And it was a risk on my side because I thought, if I take it and it doesn't work out, is this the right move? Isn't this the right move? So I did think about it quite a bit, but then I thought, what the heck, let's just take the risk.
That's brilliant. And really, that's what we want to dive into a little bit more today, what it takes to actually take that risk. And I'd love to dig into, initially, you said that there were parts of the role that you didn't want to do. So what went through your mind, and how did you eventually come to that conclusion that you're not only going to reject the offer, but you're going to change it up? And that's takes a lot of guts, right?
Well, I thought, do you know what? I wasn't really fussed if I'd got the position or not, because I was happy doing what I did. And once I'd got the qualification, either I'd move on or look at different directions. So I thought, there are bits that I would really enjoy. And we had a couple of meetings. It wasn't straight off, yes, you can do it. And it was kind of a negotiating as well, because I didn't want to upset or hurt the person who was doing the manager role, because we were quite good friends. But I thought, I can help and I can do these roles, which she hated. And so it kind of was a perfect partnership. And the more I did it, the more my confidence grew, and the more I proved to myself that I could do it. I think that was the biggest battle, having belief in yourself. And I've never regretted the decision, touch wood.
That's amazing. And what was it? Because I think there are probably a lot of people that are in that very same position, in that, maybe I kind of want to do it, but I'm going to put myself off the idea of even thinking that I want to because, I'm worried or I think I can't. What was it in particular that maybe scared you about the role, or that you felt you wouldn't be ready for?
I think it was failure. Am I going to be good at this role? Is it for me? Is it going to affect my family life? Am I going to have to do long hours? And that was all a part of the negotiation. It was, I want to do these hours. It sounds like I demanded quite a lot now, thinking back on it. Yeah, but it was kind of, yes, I'll take the role if I do these hours, if I can have these parts of it. Because I think inside I knew if I enjoyed it, I'll be good at it. I think if you do a job you're not passionate about, or you don't enjoy what you're doing, even though you may be good at it, at a point you're not going to enjoy it, so you're not going to give it your all. So I think it was tricky, but it worked out well.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because you say you didn't have that much confidence, but you went in like, I want this, I want to work these hours, how did you get yourself into that frame of mind?
Well, I was thinking, I don't want this role. So if he says no, it's fine. He'll stop pestering me and I can carry on doing my role. So let's give it a go. And I suppose inside, because he kept asking, I was thinking, yeah, I should give this go. Let's see where it takes me. Because I think I was doing the role without being recognised for it. So although I was a nursery assistant and a nursery nurse, I was kind of dipping my foot in and out every time they needed a hand, or they were short staffed in the management team. I would just go and say, oh, do you want a hand? Or they'd come and get me saying, do you think you can help us? So I suppose if you really know yourself, you kind of know what you're capable of, but you still have the doubt at the back of your mind thinking, I'm not sure, I'm really not sure.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of the time, people, your superiors, if they're good, they'll probably recognize what you're good at, what you're already doing, and it's probably worth listening, or just paying attention. Whether that is something you want to do is a whole other decision, but especially starting out, you're probably not 100% sure yet. So maybe just exploring those options. So I think it's amazing that you went in and, requested for what you wanted. And what I'm taking from that is the fact that you said, even if they said no, that would be fine.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes realizing that there are other options out there, and even if the one doesn't pan out, then that's okay, and you can do something else. So, okay, so you take this management role, and it's a new thing for you. What challenges did you face? What was it like?
There were a lot of challenges because I think I was working with a really big team, and I was at the same level as them, so taking up a position that is higher in a leadership or a management role can be difficult. But I took it very, very slowly. I didn't, as soon as I got the position, I didn't make any changes. I made sure they knew I was the same person with the same values, still, I think, because it's so important to enjoy work and have a laugh. I want my staff to have fun when they're at work. It's not just about work. So I kind of took that approach, and then gradually we worked together. I was very, come on, what are we doing here? Let's do it together. Let's make decisions together. So they didn't feel like it was all my decisions. They felt included, which worked a lot better. Because I think if you include the team and you ask them, what's your opinion? Do you think this will work? What about this? What about this? And actually have that dialogue with them. That I think that's why it worked. And I always put the interests of the staff alongside the business balanced. It wasn't just black and white. So I think, although there were challenges and a few bumps along the way, which I think would happen to anyone regardless of what you do, it worked out quite well. And I think it was, getting up every morning thinking, I can do this.
Yeah, like a bit of a mantra to yourself.
Yeah.
Did you find that any of your relationships changed, maybe with people you were working in a different way before?
I think it did, because sometimes I think it's human nature to try, and not to do the full job or things like that. But as long as you set your standards and they understand what you expect, I think it works out well. There's a few issues, where they maybe targets weren't hit, or the quality of what I expected and what they thought I would expect was different. But that was all ironed out through conversations and dialogues and demonstrating what I expected. So it took, it didn't happen straight away, it took a while, but once it was set, it worked really well. And we have an extremely close team. We've worked together for a long time now. At the beginning, we were a new team, so we kind of know each other's personalities. So it works really well. I think you need to know what makes your team tick.
And what is it that you think makes your team tick now? What have you discovered?
They're a fun team. So although they know that I expect targets to be hit, like I said, we like to have fun. So last weekend, the team had worked extremely hard, and they were reflecting on the first lockdown and what we'd done for one of the girls whose birthday it was. And they said, can we have an 80s theme party? And I went, yes. Go ahead. So they did all the work, and then for an hour they were allowed to put on loud music and let their hair loose. Because we have different bubbles in the building due to COVID. So there was 4 or 5 of them, and I said, as long as you play Whitney Houston, you're allowed. So I think one of our mantras is work hard but have fun. I want to hear laughter in the building. It's not all about keeping your head down and getting work done. I want to see the children laughing. I want to see the staff laughing, and they know that. And just when you think it's getting a bit serious, or there's not enough laughter, we have a fun day, or we do something, everyone wears dresses, or we get cakes in, or somebody's birthday, we buy them flowers. So
yeah, 80s theme parties, all about that. Having a bit of fun with the team. And you're right. I mean, particularly with your business, if you're working with children, right, that should there should be a lot more joy there. But I think for everybody, I think particularly now people are looking for a bit more of that connection, and having a laugh is sometimes more difficult virtually because people kind of clock off. So how much of the work, if any, has shifted to remote, and how has this impacted how you work with your team?
So the first lockdown, we decided to stay open because it was new to everyone. We didn't know what to do and what not to do. So we had a meeting. I had a meeting with my senior team, and I said, I would like to stay open if you guys would help. And all of them said yes straight away. We asked the rest of the team who wanted to work. So we had a very small team, and we stayed open throughout. And it was the first lockdown, it was fine because we had a small bubble and we were seeing each other, and we didn't really know what was happening. We were taking it day by day. It was really uplifting because we were holding each other up, and it was such a nice atmosphere to work in. Whereas the second lockdown, it's a lot more different because we've got a lot more children in, so we're divided it up into 3 bubbles. So we've got an office and then me. So some days I work from home, and all our meetings are done virtually, which is really tough because we're quite a tactile team.
Yeah.
So, if anyone's having a hard time, we give them a hug and things like that. So we can't do that this time, which is difficult. But then they have their own little bubbles who they support because they're in rooms with 4 or 5 staff or whatever. So I suppose in those little teams, they're okay. But the meetings, I find them difficult virtually, but at least we're still communicating. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, there are bubbles, so you can still have some
Yeah.
communication. It's just not the same with
No.
all of your group, which is great.
Yeah.
And okay, so going back to then how you have a really fun team, and sometimes you said the targets were not met, and then you had to communicate your expectations with your team. How do
Yeah.
you do that, or how did you learn to do that in a more effective way to make sure it's clear on both sides?
Well, I think once or twice, if they haven't met their targets, you kind of ask, well, what happened? Did you have an issue? Did you have too much work? And it was that kind of dialogue that helped. Now they come to me if they're behind or they're not going to hit the target, which really helps. But it was at the beginning trying to sort out those boundaries of this is what I expect. If you're not going to hit your target, you need to put the flag up. So as a team, we can help you, or we can put in strategies or get extra staff in, and they've kind of got the idea now. Due to COVID, sometimes they're not meeting deadlines, but we just put in help, and they're coping quite well.
That's great. And did that ever go wrong in the beginning? And that's how you learnt this?
I think at the beginning, yes, because you're setting your boundaries, aren't you? You're trying to show what you expect without being. I didn't want to be a hard manager, where I'm like waving a stick about and this is what I expect. I wanted them to have the flexibility I have within my role. Because as long as I do my job and I hit my targets, everyone's fine. And I wanted them to have the same level of independence and not being felt like they were being watched all the time. So it works very well with the established team, but if we get new members in, it takes them a while to get used to our team because we've got a well-established team who've worked there for years, and we're very different from other settings. Because everyone will have a go at something new. One important thing I wanted to do was, like the way I was given the chance to do the role I wanted my team, regardless of which position they're in, to have that opportunity. So when I'm doing personal developments or appraisals, I will say, is there anything else you're interested in? Why don't you try this? Or what about this? What about this? And you can spot the leaders. You can spot the ones who are taking a risk, who'll say, oh, can I try this project? Or can I try this project? And we try and put scaffolding in place for them. So if we think, they're not quite ready, we try and put little bit of mentoring in place to make sure they hit the target, so they build their confidence the next time they have, more confidence to take on a bigger project, and then see how they get on. But we try and use a lot of growth mindset as well. So, it's good to fail. This sounds terrible, but sometimes it's good to fail because you learn, and this is what we're trying to tell the staff, because we're in childcare. Most of the staff are very caring, they don't want people to fail or their team members to fail. And it was looked upon, oh no, she's not going to hit a target. Oh no, she's doing this. And we kind of turned it around to say, look, it's a growth mindset. You're going to have a go 3 or 4 times before you might get it, but it's fine. It's not the end of the world. Let's keep doing it. But that's taking a while to get embedded, because I think people hate the fact that they don't want to fail or let someone down. So we've been doing that for about 2 years now. And the senior team have got it. So we're trying to filter it down to the other staff. And they're kind of getting there slowly.
Yeah, and growth mindset comes up a lot because I think it is difficult for the first few times. If you've never failed at anything before, if you've just been taught to learn that, or been taught to know that failing is really bad, it can hit you really hard when you failed and you haven't done well at something. And it's not uncommon that I've seen just someone be quite resigned to that loss or kind of wallowing in that loss. So how do you train someone out of that, more fixed mindset and kind of wallowing in that failure to seeing the potential benefit of it?
So what we've tried recently, about 6 months ago, we tried it years ago before, but then we left it and we put it in again. So the senior management team, some of them were saying they were struggling with, the day-to-day tasks of filling in, I don't know, cleaning rotas and things like that. So when I do the shifts for the staff, I was putting an L next to people's names, so they were the leader for the day. And at the beginning, it was still the seniors doing it. And I said, no, the whole point of this is you give them that allowance that they do fail. And it's not the end of the world. It's only a cleaning sheet. We can go back, we can ask questions and they can fill it out. And it's embedded now, so they're doing it automatically. But the thing is, they've realized what their seniors' role was like. So they kind of have more sympathy for them now. Whereas before they might have felt, oh, it's a nag, or why do they keep saying you haven't filled this and you haven't done this? So that's really helping. And we've been surprised by some of the girls who've just taken it on and, have built their confidence and they're kind of just doing it. So you haven't got those bits of little tasks that can be done really easily left over now. And I think their confidence is growing.
Okay, so you think it's about just giving people a bit more accountability?
Yeah, I think definitely holding people accountable, but giving them the opportunity to show. I mean, sometimes people are worried about taking the risk. They don't want to put their hand up above, the water, or say, can I have a go? Because they're all friends and, they're all work colleagues. So they don't want to seem too keen, or I don't know what it is. But when you say, okay, you have a go at this, and they'll be like, oh, okay. I said, you can do it. Come on, let's have a look. And 8 out of 10, they do manage to do it. They may struggle, but we just help them, and then they feel really proud of it. And we also put in staff of the moment. So if they've achieved something, even little, like doing a display board that they've never done, we'll get them a bunch of flowers just to say you've done an amazing job. Or, because of lockdown at the moment, we're doing birthday cakes for everybody. Just lift the spirit up. So we keep trying different things and making sure they're being recognized for every little thing they're doing. Or just even when you're praising as the manager, explain why you're praising, what you liked in your staff. So you spoke to that child really well, you used open questions, that was fantastic, maybe next time try this, but that was really impressive. Or you can say, you spoke to that parent really well, the situation was really tricky, but you stayed calm. So describe their behavior so they understand what they're doing right.
And what is it about that that's so important? Like actually not just praising sort of for the sake of it?
Because I think sometimes you're just like, oh, well done, but they don't even sometimes know what they've done right or wrong, and it's actually explaining this is the behavior I'm praising, so they would repeat that behavior again and they get a better understanding of what they're doing right as well. Yeah, so that works really well.
Excellent. Yeah. And okay, so through this, all of this learning with managing a team, encouraging a team, what did you find was your biggest challenge or maybe failing in there, and what have you learned from it?
The challenge, I would say, I think it was having friends, when I took the position, and trying to not over exceed. It sounds funny, but I didn't want to be too successful or think they're going to get demoted. And it was all looking after other people, or I don't know. So I kind of had to get over that, because at the beginning we were a small team. So I don't know if it was me trying to protect them or me not wanting to be out the clique. I think it was all maybe my own insecurities, which I had to get over. And, it's fine to succeed. There's nothing wrong with succeeding. There's nothing wrong with proving you can do a job. And one of the things I've learned is have people in in your camp who truly believe in you, who will lift you up, but also critique you in a way that will make you better at your job. That's really important, that you have people who have the same values as you.
So who were those people for you in your case? Because you said you had friends when you went into the management role, and then you tried to kind of not make a big deal out of it so that you wouldn't be left out. So who did you reach out to? How did you find these people who challenged you? And
well, I have friends outside of work who I could talk to, and if I was finding things tricky, and I'd kept in touch with other bosses that I've worked with, and use people that are sounding boards, who weren't going to say, oh yeah, you're doing brilliantly, but were making me question myself in the right way. And I'm very close to my family, so talking to my children and my husband about situations really helped, because I knew if I was wrong, they would tell me. It's not a case that they're going to say, oh, it's okay, mum, or it's okay, this, so. And also I went to uni, and I had a bunch of friends and colleagues, and we were kind of all headed in the same direction, which really helped. Uni really helped me to boost my confidence, because when I was signing up, I was so nervous. Yet again, I was, taking a risk. I had a full-time job, 2 children, doing exams, husband who had a full-time career as well. But we discussed it as a family, and I had husband cooking or the kids cooking. So it was tough because it was a day release, a lot of assignments, a lot of exams. But the people I met on the course, I'm still in touch with, and they're in the same industry, so we kind of were supporting each other through it, and critiquing each other and going to each other's settings and looking at how we were managing, or looking at what we were delivering. So that really helped.
Yeah, and I love that you've touched on that, because we do try to make things seem smaller as well. But can we just go back to, you were studying while you were like, okay, so tell me about all of this experience, like going back to uni, having the kids. What was that all like?
Well, I've always wanted to go to uni, but I've never had the right opportunity, or I never knew what I wanted to study. So when I got the promotion, and then this opportunity came up, there was a big drive to get more people in childcare settings with BA honours or degrees or earlier status. And I just mentioned it to my director, and I said, this is something I'd really like to do, but I don't know if I can. I don't know if I've got the skills to actually do a 3-year course. So I said, I'll just go for an interview and see how I do. And I had to do some tests, do an interview, and I got through, I think, just about. But I love those 3 years. I don't regret it for a minute. The last year was the hardest because there was dissertations, exams. It was a lot more full on. So I found the last year very difficult while holding down a full-time job. So most of my weekends were spent in the room just catching up with assignments and things like that. But I loved it. I got Student of the Year award, which kind of was a shock. But it kind of just gave me that boost that I know what I'm talking about, because I think that's another thing you struggle with. Yes, I'm doing this, but is it right? I'm putting this in place, but is it right? So it kind of gave me a real boost, because I didn't even know there was an award or anything like that. They just invited me to an event, and it was lovely.
Yeah, you kind of just did it anyway, which is amazing.
Yeah, and yet again, it's taking a risk, isn't it? I thought, okay, if I don't pass the first year, I just won't carry on. But let's give it a go. And, I kind of don't read into too much, because I think if I start looking at the finer details, I'll put myself off. So I was like, this is something I want. I'm going to have a go. Let's just do it. And I loved it.
It's kind of like when we spoke about today, we could have prepared all the questions, but you just said no. Let's
No,
not prepare any of the questions, because then I'll just get it in my head. Yeah, I'll overthink. So sometimes it is just taking that action. And I can see from just the way you're describing everything that you were saying that, I knew I'd have other options and I wanted to do it, but I wasn't sure I could. But then I just tried it and saw how it went. And so,
I
yeah.
think that is one of the things that I have learned, from taking the promotion. It is take the leap, take that risk. What's the worst that's going to happen? Okay, so you go back to where you were, it doesn't matter. At least you won't have the regret that I didn't have a go.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Harder to live with that you never gave it a chance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what kind of resources did you find helpful? I mean, you mentioned that you had friends from university. What else did you use to get yourself ready for the new role?
So I did it. I love listening to TED Talks. So I listened to a lot of talks, a lot of leaders, and I did that kind of research. I didn't pick one particular book that suited me, because I'm an audio person. I like listening. So I kind of did a lot of leadership courses. Every time there was a course coming up, I'd sign up to it. So I kind of did that. And then we touched upon it at uni as well. There was a management unit, which I absolutely loved. It was just came to me as second nature. The others I found a bit more difficult. So I kind of picked up things there. And I think I'm a big reflector on my mistakes, or what I'm saying, or what I'm doing on a daily basis, which is taught to you if you're in childcare, to constantly reflect on the activities you're doing with the children. So I kind of changed that to what I was doing with the staff, or what I was doing when I was leading a project, or what mistakes am I doing. So it's constantly just looking at, even if you've done brilliantly, was there something else I could have done here? Oh, okay, I can change this up. So you're constantly refining your own skills.
Yeah, but this is not beating yourself up over not doing them. It's just,
No, yeah. I mean, it can get to that stage if you over reflect. There is a danger.
Okay.
Which can happen, because I do over reflect, and I kind of think, oh damn it, I could have done that a whole lot better, or I could have said that a whole lot. It's taken me years to come out of that and just think, no, I did a really good job. Okay, but if I did this, it could have gone this way. So that is a good point. If you are an over reflect, it can go the other way.
So what do you do in that case? Say you're over reflecting on something and maybe being too hard on yourself. How do you snap out of that?
I think at the beginning I was too hard on myself, because if things didn't go according to what I thought they would go, or we didn't get an award, or if we were entering something we didn't win, it was like, what have we done? What have I done wrong here? And it would get to the point where it's just going round and round in your head. And I thought, this is unhealthy. We need to change this up. Just learn from it and move on. And it does take time. It's not going to happen overnight. It takes practice. And I think it takes getting to know what makes you tick as well. Because I think a lot of people are so busy just doing the role that they're not giving time to themselves to get to know what works for them. Because as a manager, you need to have strategies in place that work for you, to make sure you're at base okay, to make sure the rest of your team is okay.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges of being really busy when you first start to manage people, because it's almost like in addition to your own workload, you have to think about talking to all of your team. You need to be there for all of the issues that they have. When do you carve out time specifically to reflect and to think through your strategies?
Yeah. So basically, I used to do too many hours. I was spending too many hours and not having that downtime. So sometimes I was spending weekends trying to catch up, or doing reading, because I wanted to sort out something at work. So I was doing background reading on, or how do we do this, or how do we change the curriculum here, or what do we do here? And it was thinking, it's not a race. let's slow down, let's have a Sunday off. And now what I do is I go for walks for my break. And we've got a beautiful park just up the road. So I tend to go for a walk for an hour to 40 minutes and just leave the work phone at work. At the beginning they were ringing me, but now it's slowing down, so I just leave the phone at work. and I say I'm going for a walk, and they know not to contact me unless it's an absolute emergency. And that's really helping. I do yoga, I do a lot of meditation, but it's different for everyone, so you've got to find what works for you, and put those strategies in place to make sure you're not getting to burnout. Because you don't want to get to that place where you're feeling uncomfortable, because your work will suffer, your relationships with your team will suffer. So it's very important that if you take a manager position or any position, that you are looking after your well-being.
Yeah, and I think it's never been more important than this year, when it's just such a difficult year for every single person, and I think that just compounds all of it. So your lunchtime walk sounds wonderful. And I'm also just wondering, did people mind that you didn't take the phone? You said they used to ring you.
Yeah, no, I think they know that is my time, and I have my personal phone, so if it's an emergency they can get a hold of me, but it doesn't mean I'll pick up all the time, because it's my time. It takes a while for them to get used to it, because if you're constantly available and then you're changing your behavior, they'll be like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Communicate why you're doing it. Communication is so important in a team. We say we have an open door policy, but you've got to make sure it's actually happening, and make sure you're having that dialogue with your staff constantly. Because we have meetings throughout the month. Sometimes we have too many meetings, I think. But we have meetings, in the middle management that I have a meeting with, there's 4 or 5 of us, and I've told them this is a space where it's psychologically safe for you to say anything you want to. And it's taken a while to get there, but now it works really well, because everyone understands the situation differently. Everyone has their own interpretation of what you've said. Your intention of what you're trying to say and the words you're using is one thing in your head, but a different thing to your team. So what we do is, I said, if you're not understanding what I'm saying, or you think I'm conveying it wrong, please speak up. And exactly the same goes back to them. If I'm unsure of what they're saying, or if they're having a hard time at home, or there's something else happening elsewhere at work with another member of the team, we openly discuss everything. It does not leave that room, but we solve the issue there and then. That, I think, is very important, that you've got to feel that you can say how you truly feel to a manager. It shouldn't be that you have to put on this act that everything is fine, or you're coping, because if you're not coping, it will affect the whole team. And it's something they've picked up on, and now they're very willing to say, I really struggled today because I was up with my child last night, or somebody will say, oh, I've got this going on. And I think it makes the team more stronger, because then if someone's struggling, because you can put in place something, or another person, or add a different person to the team, just to make sure that it's not having an impact on the team, on work, and their well-being is also catered for.
Definitely. And it's very much your responsibility as well to keep to that promise, because the first time you tell your team, share all the problems with me, I mean, they're not going to tell you, right? Like, I wouldn't, if someone I've never had a frank conversation with says, tell me your problems, I'm going to be pretty guarded. And, not all managers will do a great job of this. So it's really hard to get your team to trust. But I think it's probably, like you said, there's something to the persistence in that even if it lies flat, as long as you keep to your words and keep bringing up that there is a space and you can talk about this, then eventually, slowly, the ice thaws.
Yes,
a
it
little
does.
bit.
I mean, I may be making it sound too easy, but it is hard work and it does take time. It takes a lot of time to get the team where you want it to be, and it takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of conversations. We do team building once a year, which is hilarious, but at the same time, we have a round table where the whole team gets together. So it's all the different rooms, the office, the kitchen, everybody's there. And it's the point where we've either said, write down your comments if you don't want to speak about it, because some people aren't confident to speak in a big crowd, which is fine. So we'll say, put your post-its up there and we'll read out the comments. And sometimes, it's surprising the questions they do ask. And we have open dialogue, and there are staff who are not confident to speak up, but will come to me at the end and say, that was really, really interesting, but I thought this. So then it's a case of trying to encourage them to speak next time you have that, or get them to lead a small task. And slowly you can see their confidence growing.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the most rewarding parts, right?
Yeah,
because people will start off by just, not necessarily knowing or not having, the guts to just put it forward. And that's why we're looking at, sort of taking that risk and taking that gamble.
Yeah.
So do you have any other advice you'd share with women who are considering going into a management role or are new in a management role?
I think take the risk. You've got nothing to lose. Yes, it's hard work, but if you enjoy it, it's really rewarding. Because you can make a difference in other people's lives, other women's lives, and lift them up. That's how I see it, because through the nursery, we've had a number of people who've come through who've wanted to use it as a stepping stone, and we've been more than happy to do that and to help them, who've gone on to become teachers, who've done masters in psychology, who've become social workers. So it's all about helping each other and not thinking of it as a competition. I think take it.
Yeah, and also just seeing, like you said, you're talking very positively about people who did use it as a stepping stone and are off to do it somewhere else. But if you as an employer give someone, your energy and your support, and you help them get to where they want to get to, they're probably going to give their best self to the job that they're doing at the moment anyway. So yeah, I'm 100% with you on that. And I'm also curious to ask, what is your favorite TED Talk? Do you have one? If you watch a few of them.
I like Brené Brown.
Okay.
Because, I got a lot of the ideas of the psychological safety in meetings and things like that from her talks. And I'm reading her book, Daring to Lead, at the moment, which I've just started. There's quite a few. And we went to a women's TED Talk in London about 2-3 years ago, and that was amazing. I would do it again at a drop of a hat. And it's just, I think it's not even about listening to women who are managers. It's about listening to women who've taken risks in business or in other parts of their lives, or who've been through some kind of hardship and come out the other end. And it's just inspiring, and you're thinking, she can do it, I can do this.
And sometimes why it's so important to not kind of diminish the things that you do, because we think it's going to make other people feel worse, but most of the time it's paving the way for other people to do the same. So okay, so this women's TED Talk in London, would you speak at one of these? Would you think about it?
I public speaking is something makes me feel sick. It's not something that I'm probably finding this easier because it's via a computer, and I'm not seeing anyone else out there, so I find it easier. But maybe it's something I'd like to do and something I'd like to look at, but I need to build up the courage to be able to stand in front of people and voice my opinions.
Yeah, well, I guess taking today's lessons, which you've told me, is pretty
Yeah.
much that you have other options. You'll give it a go. You'll see how it goes, and then and then kind of go from there, which is exactly what you've done today, right? So it's
Yeah,
kind of
definitely.
saying that.
I didn't want to discuss it. I said, we'll just have a chat and let's see how it goes.
Yeah, and even if it is uncomfortable, that's
Yeah.
fine. It's okay that it's
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
I think that's a really important point, is getting used to that uncomfortable feeling. Because I think the more you do it, the more you get used to it, the more you're thinking, you forget about it when you're in the middle of a chat or, standing in front of, because once I get into it, I'm okay. It's the thought of standing up there. Because when we hold big events and we've got like 50 parents in, or we've got all the staff in, and I say to someone, "Oh, do you want to do this?" No, I don't think so. So then you have no choice but to do it, and then it's okay once it begins and you have a go.
Yeah, and thank you so much for doing that today. I mean, I'd love to hear a little bit about what you're doing now, what you're thinking about, how everything is going, and any last bits of advice you have to share.
Well, at the moment we're taking part in the Kickstart program. So we're looking to take on Kickstart. I suppose they're called apprentices, but the contract's for 6 months. It's a scheme to get very young people back into the job market, or give them a stepping stone into it. So at the moment I'm interviewing. We're looking at apprentices. We've mostly had girls apply or women apply, so it's open to both genders. Although childcare, we don't have a lot of male childcare practitioners. It would be brilliant if we did have some male practitioners as well, but we've taken on a few kickstarts, so I put someone in charge of it so we can build their confidence and get them onto the ladder of working. So that's something we're looking at the moment. I've done a bit of consulting before, which I've stopped at the moment because work is so busy, and I thought I was spreading myself too thin. I mean, that's the beauty of my role as well. I can dip in and out and go and do a bit of work for somebody else and come back when if it's running smoothly and they don't really need me, I can take a week off and do that. That works really well, and it kind of ignites the fire within me. So if the role's getting a bit repetitive, I try and spice it up a bit more for myself. So yeah, and I write for Childcare Magazine now and again, depending on what subjects they're following. They'll contact me or I'll contact them. So I kind of have my hands full at the moment.
That's so good to hear. And where can people get in touch with you if they'd like to hear more about the role, or about your consulting or writing?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, so they can look at my profile there and just give me a message, and I'll be happy to share any advice.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sandhya. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you. Thanks so much to everybody who was watching. I'll post in the link so that you can get in touch if you have any further questions or you want to hear more. But thank you so much. Hope you have a wonderful evening and rest of the day. And I look forward to seeing you next time at Women Leading People.
Thanks, Ava. That was brilliant.
Thanks so much.
Okay,
Have a great
bye.
evening. Bye.